you get started. Let's see if this is working.
Yeah, I'm trying to see if I can get it to pop up. Oh, hold on. You might be going live. All right, we are live.
Sweet.
So let me get this shared on my page.
All right, we are live. Sweet. All right, what's going on, everybody? All right, we'll get this figured out, guys. I just want to make sure we get the chat up. All right. So, obviously, we're here to talk about the Ironman Fall Fishing Series, presented by H24 Outdoors, and obviously one of our big sponsors, Duckett Rods. Garrett, you want to talk about kind of what we... we did a fall series before, but I know you came to me and talked about let's do this thing.
Yeah, so as the season winds down, a lot of folks, they like to get out and hunt and do some other things. People got football going on and things on Saturdays. It's good to still keep the dust off the rods when you can. Get out there and fish a little bit. Still a lot of folks that want to be competitive, but this is also a great time of year to introduce new folks to kayak fishing. So people that have maybe been following the NSKA page or maybe the shop page that have an interest, maybe they even bought a kayak from you and they've seen some events and they're kind of interested in, well, what is this kayak fishing? Well, the Ironman Fall Series is the perfect place to do that. We take a lot of the pressure off of what would normally be there for tournament fishing out of the Fall Series. And let's talk about a little bit what the differences are.
Right.
So you as a TD, we're not using Tourney X.
Right.
So what's that look like for fishermen?
So we're obviously going with a 3-fish limit rather than a 5-fish. We're only doing this for a few hours on a Sunday afternoon, so no real pressure to get things entirely right. Standard NSKA rules apply, but rather than turning it onto an app, we're just having people put it on their phone, top 3 fish.
Right.
So judging it.
So for somebody that's new, who's never done this, you take out having to mess with the app.
Correct.
So a beginner can come out there, just use their cell phone, take pictures of their fish, and not have to try to worry about uploading or downloading the app.
Right.
We're taking away the pressure of having to find 5 fish. So we're going to fish these events from 1 to 4:30.
Yep.
Which, in the fall, I feel like those are really good hours on a Sunday.
Those are really good hours.
You can pull up whatever NFL game you want to listen to on your phone while you're out there fishing. It gives you time if you're a hunter and you want to go hunt Sunday morning.
Yep.
You can get out there in the woods. If you want to go to church with the family, you can also do that. And then, come on out and fish for a few hours. And, really, we're going to use these preview shows as teaching moments.
Absolutely.
We want people to come out and catch fish. Of course, we're going to do a little side pod and have a little fun with that. But, guys, there's not going to be anybody out here, trying to go win every event and win every prize.
Right. There's no
AOI. Yeah, there's no AOI. We're not keeping points. This is more about bring somebody new if you want to that's never fished an event. Folks like myself, folks like Larry Wisnat, like Eric Morris, and Gordon Parhams that have fished many events will help these people out. We'll get them accustomed to, measuring fish and things like that. I'll share a little bit about kind of what's going on in Conway here in a bit when we get to that. Let's talk a little bit about what Duckett's been able to provide for these events, which is a little bit of an incentive to come out and do well.
Yeah. So obviously you talked to Duckett and they called me and they're like, "Hey, what can we do?" I'm like, "Well, man, I don't know how big this thing is going to be, so I wanted to manage expectations. You don't want to promise the world, because there's enough of that going on in the industry right now." So I said, man, we could have 3 people show up. We could have 30 people show up. We had no idea.
You aren't going to tell them that we're going to have 200,000 hotel visits over the next 3 months.
I mean, I told them maybe 20, but manage those expectations. But anyway, so the guys at Duckett, they're like, "Hey, we still want to do something They may want to do something with NSK, but they want to do something. You've been really good for the brand for them locally. Obviously we do a ton of rods here, so they just wanted to get back. Well, what they did was they want to show off their reel line. So the winner of every fall fishing series, we got 4 of them. We got 4 of these Paradigm reels to give away. So I got to say, I've played with it. I actually thought it was a really cool reel. I was like, man, this is
well, and
this is legit.
I've seen these online, and the folks that have been around me a while will kind of figure out I've through trial and error kind of become somebody that I'm not an early adopter. I generally don't try to get the first generation of things either. I like to watch the early adopters get the first generation of things and hear their feedback first.
For sure.
And so I haven't even had one of these in my hand yet. And I came into the shop in Israel. I had one up there. It's like, hey, you seen these? And, for the price point, I was kind of blown away.
Yeah, that's a $99
it is a
rod.
really good reel. It doesn't feel cheap. it doesn't have, any kind of grind to it or a bunch of, plastic parts. It is a legit reel, which, Duckett is known for making great rods. So, I'll admit, even being part of their team, I was like, well, I don't know about these reels. But now, I ain't gonna lie, I'm gonna have to have a few. So even if I don't, end up getting one throughout the course of the fall, I'll probably end up with a few of these in my hand just to try out. And you're right, Duckett's been a good partnership with me personally. I think they stand behind their brand as well. So let's give these reels a try for the folks that win them. And after you win one, we want your feedback on them. Like we want to know
for sure.
How they perform and what you think. And so that way we can give feedback to Duckett as well because they want to hear kind of the end user story on how those reels are performing. So that's the cool piece of what we got coming. The entry fee for these events is $20. Along with a $5 side pot for big bass. So, if nothing else, you come out, you catch one fish, and you threw in the $5, you may win a little bit of take-home cash. But you'll for sure come away with hopefully getting a fish with some buddies, a good time. Now, we've designed this to be everybody lead from the same ramp for a few different reasons. One, like we're really trying to build community. I know that's cliche, but we want people to interact with each other. We want people to share tips in this type of format and help newer folks. Go ahead.
Well, what a lot of people don't understand is that's how kayak fishing got started. I mean, it was always, hey, meet at this one ramp. Back in 2015 and 2016 when I started doing this, that was everybody met at one ramp, and everybody came back to one ramp or came back to one spot, and then you filled out your little note card with how many fish you got and what it is. You threw it in the thing, and when the TD called you up, judged your fish, graded you, and there you go.
Yeah.
So I mean, there's a little bit of that. With technology, we've lost a little bit of that. Get together and community things that we've tried to keep within SKA, but you still don't get that sense of community and that close and togetherness. Guys helping people get moved off the ramp, and guys helping people get unloaded and loaded up. So I mean, there's a little bit of that, and it helps the newcomers realize that there is part of that community there, because kayak fishing really, I mean, we're all pretty helpful, I gotta say.
Absolutely.
Very approachable.
Another component of this, we are in the fall. Some of the events will be, when it's a little bit colder, especially that January event, which we purposefully put on a smaller lake for this reason as well as, if by accident someone takes a dive, we do want to be around to help them out. We don't want to be spread out all over the place at a bigger lake. So knowing that we're going to go out in the fall in some cold weather, we want to be able to think of safety as well. So leaving from the same ramp ensures that we can make sure everybody comes back. And that if someone were to take a dunk, we can all kind of be there to help them as well. So that kind of explains a little bit of the why the format is the way it is. So we're looking at a 3-fish limit. We're looking at just taking your own photos. We're all leaving and coming back to the same ramp. and you'll have to be back at 4:30, at the end of the day, so that James can grade fish, or whoever's designated as the fish grader for that event if you're out of town or something, and get folks on the road and on their way. Or hey, if folks want to go meet up at David's Burger and have a burger, do
That's
that
right.
too.
Well, so let's get into we've got the why the series, now why the lakes. So we started off with Lake Conway.
Absolutely. So Lake Conway is hot this time of year.
Mm-hmm.
I've been out there some over the last few weeks. Um, you know, it's just a really good fishery for those shallow times of year. And of course, fall is a great time of year to fish shallow.
Mm-hmm.
You get shad migrating towards the creek. There's a big shad bite generally in the fall.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the reason why Conway's on the list in October. And we'll break that down a little bit more after we go through the list. We'll circle back to Conway and talk about, hey, what's coming up on Sunday.
Absolutely.
That second event is on Lake Atkins in November. And that's going to be November 20th, that week before Thanksgiving. So you're kind of getting a little bit colder, but you could still have some warm weather. And I expect that 3-fish limit to be a banger. I expect that to be someone out there, to have 60 inches, and it could be somebody brand new to kayak fishing.
Right.
It's just a time of year thing out there. Those fish are going to be feeding up, getting ready for the winter, and that'll be a good time of year to be on that lake. Again, smaller body of water. We'll all leave from Lucky's Landing, where we can be, close together. You can kind of cover that entire lake if you wanted to in a short few hours, or at least make it to whatever cove you want to fish and back. No problem, I feel like.
Yeah. So we go from Conway, we go to Lake Atkins, we go to Brewer in December.
Brewer in December. The reason why we wanted to go, well, I felt like we needed to go there in December, is there is an amazing jig bite and a rig bite out on Brewer in December.
Right.
And you can absolutely catch a monster out there. I mean, they're in the lake. There's lots of brush piles on that lake, and throwing A-rigs around those brush piles and throwing jigs on top of those mush piles is a lot of fun. We've done an event out there in the past in the fall series, and I remember there was a pretty good jig bite, and I remember I caught a pretty good one with Furman and Brandon around me on the A-rig, and that was a lot of fun. So I've already thought about maybe recruiting Miss Jessica Morgan to maybe do like a chili in the parking lot, and also maybe watch the trucks for us. So.
There's going to be something to that for sure.
Yeah, so that way, we don't have to worry about that. And we can, chat with the guys that are fishing the events prior to that event. So by the time we get to Atkins, we'll kind of have a pretty good group, and we'll just kind of let the group, hey, which ramp do y'all want to go out of? Right. I mean, me personally, I don't care. Right. Either one's fine. So we'll talk to the group about that and kind of get that together.
If you remember the last time we did something over, everybody wanted to go out of the south ramp. We ended up going out of the north ramp because the south ramp was iced in.
Yes, that's true. That is
true. And then we go to a lake that when we put it out, everybody asked me, where in the world is Lake Bailey?
Yeah. So, we're going to introduce y'all to the folks that stick it out. If you can stick it out, if you can handle the cold, you will get an opportunity to go catch some, on average, between 17 and 19-inch fish. Pretty much, man, you can catch a lot of them. You'll get a chance to really get a hold of some good fish in January on Lake Bailey. Now, this particular lake is at a state park. It's up at Petty Jean Mountain. It's a very small lake, which we chose on purpose. I'm not sure how big our crowd will be by then. Number one, that time of year. I usually wear duck hunting waders that time of year, along with a rain suit to keep the warmth. But there's a really good jig bite there, a really good Alabama rig bite there. Believe it or not, there's a really good chatterbait bite in old vegetation up there, and I mean in like 2 foot of water.
I'm telling you, I when you told me about Lake Bailey, I'm like, oh man, because usually that time of year, if I'm up at Pettigee, I'm hiking during that time of year because that's a great time of year to go up to Pettigee to hike. So the cool thing about that is there's campgrounds up there.
Oh
There's
cabins.
There's cabins up there, all within like 2 minutes of the lake. So
Yeah.
I mean, it's you could you could technically take the family up there and make a weekend out.
Yeah, and there's a nice little coffee house up there now. That's pretty cool. They actually have an Airbnb as well. So lots of opportunities to go up early on Saturday. Get up, go to the lodge and have breakfast, hang out, and then get ready to fish. So not a ton of events. We just do one every month for the next few months. Allow some newer folks to get out there, and also allow folks, kind of, keep the dust from settling too much. It's good to keep a rod in your hand.
I mean, you and I have talked about this numerous times about fall fishing is some of the best fishing out there. But I think there is something to be said about, if you do want to get into tournament fishing, or you're even an experienced tournament angler, getting out there and being able to try new things on different style water. Maybe it's water that you're used to, but it's a different time of year. It's a different pattern. Really mimics that early season pattern, that early spring pattern.
Yes.
Going into some of the tournaments, like maybe a Greer's or maybe a Washita or one of those lakes that one of the series that kick off in the spring. So I just think it's a time that you can experiment. There's no real pressure on the series, so it's really a time to get in there and see what's going on.
Absolutely. And with this first event, when we talk about patterns and things that are going on Lake Conway, I've had a chance to get out there a few times over the last couple of weeks. I hadn't been out in a week, but I don't think much has changed. One thing that I will tell everybody is the bait, the thread-fin shad out there are numerous, but they're very small. And so we're going to go through some what we call our shop picks for folks that are looking, hey, what can I go out there and catch some fish
what
on?
he's got in there.
We'll go through some items here, and you'll see a lot of the baits that I'm choosing are 3 inches or smaller. The average size of the thread-fin shad right now that are being fed on Plentiful are around 3 inches or so, if not a little bit smaller. We're going out of Palarum Creek, and there's a lot of shad in that area right now. And I will tell you this: if you're not seeing shad flickering, or you're not seeing bass schooling up feeding on them, keep moving. Go find that. If you're in dead still water and nothing's moving around right now, you are not in the right spot. Because it took me a while to find them going out of Palarum, because I don't fish Palarum a ton.
Right.
That was always, kind of Ben's spot. And I'd try to beat them from another part of the lake, which usually didn't work out too well for me.
Didn't. But that man, he could fish like crazy.
And to speak of Ben, his little area has been where I've been a lot. We all that have been out there kind of know where his sign is. And so as we get on the ramp, if folks want to, follow me over that way, that's probably where I'll go. I don't mind. This is all for fun and trying to catch fish.
Absolutely.
One of the top picks for this time of year is a lipless crankbait. And so there's one here in the shop that's chrome, and it's a 1-knocker, and it's just a 1/4 ounce, and it's really small, so it fits that profile. And that's a bait that you can throw and just, run it through stumps. Running around stumps. Yep. When you see, fish come up schooling, just toss it out there and reel it through them. So that's the first bait of choice there. Another one, if we get some good sunshine and it's hot, is just a smaller buzz bait. And I picked the one that has the tri-blade on there, the 3 blades, because it just has a little bit more weight to it, I feel like, and flies a little bit better. But a small buzz bait this time of year does well. You'll see, I'll try to get up a video here on my own page in the next day or two that shows me out there doing this, but I caught some on the small Spro frog, so the Spro Junior. I do cut those legs down quite a bit to make that a smaller, compact bait to throw.
In the shop, we call that the Garrett Morgan frog.
That's it, man. I think y'all ordered 6 one day. I called Israel. I said, how many you got? He said 6. I said, I'll take 5 of them. I'll leave one for somebody. But yeah, I get big bites on it,
Yep.
and you catch a lot of fish. To me, your hookup ratio is better on the junior. They can get the whole thing in their
Yep.
mouth and take off with it. But this half-ounce bladed bait here is also another one. Actually, you and I were talking before we got on. These particular baits do not hang up as easy because they don't have that treble that hangs down in the middle. It's just 2 hooks, but they go under the belly of the bait. And so that may be a really good option for Lake Conway, kind of versus the lipless. Kind of has the same action, mimics the same bait, but has a little bit different style of hook that may keep you out of some of the stumps. Of course, a 1.0 is always good. This is a Shing Angler option here. Just in a silver color, but something that's small, not going to dive too deep, because you'll see these shad are just kind of running on top of the water for the most part. Spinnerbait in the fall, always a good option, but if I were going to pick up the sling blade, I would cut the skirt back to where the hook is right there. So to me, that's a little bit too big, but if you cut the skirt back, the blades are about the right size in that 1/4 ounce Z-Man sling blade there. So I think that's a really good option.
What else you got in there?
Couple other things. This is really and truly my favorite thing to throw this time of year. Matt Gifford knows this little secret. Me and him were fishing on Caney one day, and the story goes like this. I was fishing down in Louisiana for the KBF National Championship, and I was pre-fishing, and I come across this old fella that, he was definitely sponsored by Bud Light.
Okay.
I'll just say that. And, he catches a 6-pounder right in front of me. And I'm like, dude, what in the world are you throwing? And he holds up this little bait, and it's just this little beetle spin looking thing. And basically, he was saying, hey, the threadfin shad are small here, this and that. And so you can put that together with some tools we have here in the shop. And essentially, you just take like a little crappie head jig in the 1/8 ounce. Mm-hmm. Okay, you take one of these. You take one of your 3-inch kayak swimmers. Mm-hmm. So you take a little 3-inch. You're gonna put that on the jig head, and then you just take one of these spinners, and it's like you just make kind of a souped up beetle spin. Mm-hmm. And I didn't end up using that bait in that particular event because I was on a much better bite as far as just numbers with a frog and a chatterbait. But I ended up making one of those whenever I got back, and me and Matt happened to meet up at Caney Creek. And I was throwing that, and I caught an 18, I caught a 19. And he's like, dude, what are you throwing? And so I showed him that. He kind of knows about that little rig there. But that's something you can put together with some materials that are here in the shop available. But, keeping it simple this time of year and small, because the threadfin shad right now are not very big. And so the other options really just kind of mimic the same thing. The stealth blade, chatterbait, again, I would cut that down quite a bit to right behind that hook, and then I would add one of the kayaks to the back of it. I don't want it real bulky. I don't want it real big. Just we're trying to represent that small thread thin shad. Same thing with the Reaction Innovation baits. These are actually 3.5, but I normally will cut the head off when I run them up on to one of these underspins here as well. So that's a good option. And, people will look at me crazy when I say this. You can actually just throw one of these Bobby Garland 2.5-inch swimmers here as well on that beetle spin setup and catch a lot of fish that way.
That you can.
And then, of course, the old Ned rig. And I'm talking about going really light with the jig head. And when those fish come up and start blowing up, just throwing it out there. And I'm talking a super light, like 1/16 ounce jig head, to where it's just representing a dying shad that's falling out there. You'll catch a lot of fish that way. So those are kind of the shop picks. I feel like if you can go out there and try to replicate a 3-inch or so, threadfin
Yeah,
shad,
absolutely.
you will end up catching quite a bit of fish out there.
I agree. I agree. And you know me, I like throwing a chatterbait anytime, and a chatterbait works anytime on that lake.
That's true.
Um,
In theory, also, I know that Sutton likes to throw big swim baits or has kind of gotten into
mhm.
that. If you're somebody that likes to do that and you have one that looks like a crappie, if you have a smaller crappie swim bait,
Yeah.
I will tell you there's some crappie out there that I caught throwing my little beetle spin setup, and I would assure you there's some bigger bass that are probably feeding on some of those crappie. So swim bait game's not really something I've gotten into, but for the few folks that do that, if you want to take one and throw it around some stumps and show us all what a 23-incher looks like, hey, we'd all love to see it.
let's do that. So let's talk briefly. We're talking about a 3 fish limit. How we bring that to the judge? How do we bring that in for judging? So what I recommend is, one, you take a lot of pictures.
Yeah.
You take a lot of pictures. And now Brandon Fink gave me this idea a long time ago. What he does is, when it's all said and done, and he's coming back to the ramp, he will make in his phone a folder, a photo album just for that event. And he will go in and he will look at each individual fish, pick the best photo he's got of that fish, move it to the album. And another trick to that is, as you're taking photos of the fish, when you're done taking a photo of the fish, just flip your phone up, take a picture of the horizon, put it back down, let the fish go. That way you know where that break is between all these fish, because all these fish can start to run together, especially if you got a lot of 15-inch fish and things like that. So
yeah,
just an idea. Move your best 3 into a photo album.
Yeah.
That way when you come up, it's easy for me to flip through and I don't see any inappropriate photos in your photo album.
You can always hit the favorite button as well, and then I'll move it over into your favorites.
Yep.
I'll try to do that, when I'm trying to figure out, which ones need to go to Tourney X kind of deal. So,
Yep.
But yeah, of course, if someone needs to borrow a kayak, I have a few extra. Other folks in the club have a few extra. So don't let that keep you from coming out and trying one of these events or trying kayak, fishing. We can help you out with that and get you set up with something for the day, and maybe even help you for the next event. So don't be afraid to reach out to folks.
Absolutely. Anybody else? I saw that Mark Cawthron and Marshall Short are in the chat, and it looks like we got 14 people. And guys, if you have any questions, let us know. Now's the time. This is something that we've talked about forever, and that it's just kind of that good idea, because not everybody's in the deer woods, not everybody, and everybody wants to scratch that itch. Ty, I know, man. Ty Vaughn, he had a little accident and had to have surgery to repair his I think it was his bicep tendon. So Ty's in the chat, says, I wish he could join the fun. Man,
just bring one of these crappie jigs out there. I'm telling you, catch fish. It's nuts right now.
He's in a sling right now, man.
Just use your left arm. Just stick it out.
I think he had surgery the week after state.
Yeah.
So yeah. So any thoughts on how the season ended for you? While we're waiting for some.
Overall, I really can't complain. Didn't end the way I, of course, would have liked for it to. But there's only one or two guys that it ends how they want it to, right? So it's kind of like in the NFL. There's only one happy coach at the end of the year.
That's true.
And he won the Super Bowl. So, having some time to look back, going into the year, I wanted to win a national event. I've been close a few times. Had never done it. Checked that box, at the first
early
event.
in the year.
And, then the goal became, hey, let's chase the Angler of the Year and see if we can make a run at that. Bought some plane tickets, got to Florida, borrowed a kayak, did well enough to take the lead, go into the third event, do well again, still maintain the lead, and, had basically the same two things happen in the last events. So had some lessons learned, but both times I went and pre-fished and caught fish great, and both times the water fell out from those areas. So lesson learned is be sure to have a backup plan of something that is not dependent on a certain amount of water being in
Right.
places like have something on some main lake for every event, I think. And that's something I didn't do at Smith. It's something, that I really didn't do at Pickwick.
Right.
Didn't really have any main lake stuff, and that kind of bit me once they dropped the water. But reflecting back, to have three national top tens in a year, I'd say, man, that's a really good year. And honestly, I don't think it's an accident that happened and I switched to Duckett rods, because I kept that 7 foot heavy in my hand quite a bit this year. I mean, that's what I used the entire time at Dardanelle. So, I do think that helped me quite a bit. I ended up with a rod pretty much for every scenario and every, situation I would come across. Whereas before I was, kind of picking through a couple different options, a couple different brands, sticking to one brand, getting to learn the product, knowing what, particular rod goes with what scenario has really helped me.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, it was cool to see. I mean, you started the year off with a win at Lake Fork, which was really cool. Ended the year top 5 in AOI at BASS. That's nothing to sneeze at. I mean, that's not necessarily
Yeah,
what you wanted,
some
but
pretty
it's
good
still
company
some
with that
really good
group.
company at the top of
And I'm really looking forward to seeing what BASS does next year.
that.
I think they're going to tighten a lot of things up.
I think you're going
Um,
to see a lot of.
Yep. We'll have, I think, more of a true tournament director in place,
Mhm.
someone that's been around kayak fishing, someone that's been a true tournament director, that I think will, help things run a bit smoother. So the only, direction for them at this point, I think, is up and moving, and Hobie is, probably going to still be around. I don't expect him to come to Dardanelle. So if you haven't looked at the All American Series, man, they got some good events coming in our area, guys. They
They do.
got Lake Conway on their list,
Yeah,
and they're partnering with us,
they're
right?
partnering with us
Yeah.
for the Ben
So,
Spangler Memorial.
so that'll be a
So,
fun event. They also are doing their championship down in South Arkansas
mhm.
at I can't ever say it right, Pheasant Fall, I believe. But
Yeah.
um, of course, everybody knows my duck hunting buddy Chris.
Hmm.
He's from that area, and he has a cousin that fishes there. And I remember years ago, Chris was just showing me pictures this dude was sending. I mean, plenty of 20-inch fish
Yep.
down there. It's kind of a hidden gem in the state that folks really don't know about.
Yep.
So if you can get to that one, I think that's going to be a really fun event as well. So
Yep.
I'm really excited about the All American Series, probably more than any series out there right now, just because they have events in our region.
Well, in that, I haven't seen. Larry said he will need an extra yak, so he's going to bring someone.
Okay, I got
So
you, Larry.
that'll work. So we're going to continue to do this. We're going to continue to do the preview shows. We've even talked about possibly just doing some regular shows.
Yeah.
So be on the lookout for that, guys. So as always, as you always see on all these YouTubes, man, hit that subscribe button and see what we got. We got some definitely things in the works, and I think you could be seeing more Garrett and I.
Yeah. And so other than that, we'll see you on the water Sunday. Meet you at the boat ramp over at Pilarm, and we'll get out there and catch some fish.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. All right, man. Hey, appreciate you guys. We'll see you next time.